In public education in Canada, the ancient world is something we maybe feel is interesting. But for the most part, it isn't a particularly important or even serious field of study. Why then, in this video, should we be suggesting that students study Latin? Now, since the Renaissance, students have had to learn the basics of Latin grammar and Latin literature. And in fact, learning what the ancients had to say, and especially the language they said it in, was the most important kind of study you could do, next to law and medicine. For the scholars and students of the Renaissance, the importance of ancient culture was as an example of what they could aspire to become themselves. They felt that European culture had declined during the so-called Dark Ages, and the study of ancient Latin writers could help shine the way to a better future. Nowadays, in our busy world, we put our trust more in scientific discoveries than in the wisdom of the ancient world. But maybe there's space for both. In the 1970s, the Maltese philosopher and psychologist Edward de Bono posited the notion of lateral thinking. Put simply, de Bono thought that creative minds approached problems differently. They came up with solutions through more intuitive association than rigorous logical processes. A good example, says de Bono, was Einstein, who discovered no new information per se, but instead came up with a radical new perspective on existing information. Lateral thinkers are creative because they reveal what was there all along. Now, this lateral thinking, it's exactly what we do when we study Latin. Unlike most modern languages, we have an enormous perspective on Latin for the very reason that it is a so-called dead language. In studying Latin, we can watch the same word used in an enormous variety of contexts across hundreds of years. And in doing so, students gain a profound sensitivity both to the fluidity of meaning, but also how apparently distinct concepts have a common origin and common essential meaning. To demonstrate this, let's look at the word creativity. It comes from the Latin verb creare. And the most simple definition of this word is to create. But it can also mean to procreate, to beget, or even to give birth to. Now, such definitions, they make pretty good sense to us. They seem like natural progressions, closely related. But just as common a usage for the ancient Romans was the meaning of to elect, or to appoint somebody to a political office. Now, whether or not the Romans explicitly noted a connection between giving birth to someone and electing them to office, that a connection is made at all can inspire modern students to consider the possibility of there being a connection between the two. Lateral thinking par excellence. Now, learning Latin, it's a long, complex, and difficult process. Many people don't master it, even after many years of study. But in the study of Latin, students gain invaluable habits of mind and strategies to improve their thinking. They learn to think of language as something they can explore, not simply use. They become better writers, better thinkers, and in short, far from being a dead language, stale and irrelevant, Latin has unique and tangible benefits for the students of today.